What does Bobby say? It's the best day every day.
I didn't think we would be referencing Barbie today, but here we are.
Dude, we should always be referencing.
Welcome to Nourished by Spinneys, the podcast which promises to inspire you to eat well and live well. I'm Devina Divecha.
And I'm Tiffany Eslick. This is a space where we hope to nourish your heart and soul. On this show, we chat with leading players in the food community, from farmers to foodies, as well as health and well-being experts. It's all about engaging conversations, fresh ideas, and Barbie?
Not quite, but we are going to be talking to someone who loves what they do, and what they do is making chocolate. So we're popping over to Quoz, to Mirzam Chocolate, where I sat down with their Chief Chocolate Officer, which is obviously my new dream title, Kathy Johnston. And like me, Kathy also grew up in the UAE and got together with the Emirati owners of Mirzam to kickstart their journey into well-sourced, beautifully crafted, and locally made chocolate nearly 8 years ago.
And so, for anyone out there who doesn't know, Mirzam is the OG chocolate maker in the UAE. And from what I know, they started out with the idea of making chocolate locally and exporting it, but soon discovered there was a market for specialty chocolate locally too, much like the well-established specialty coffee market we already have.
Yeah, definitely. And, Mirzam has also done so many collaborations with local artists, as well as the regions where they source their beans from. They have worked with the Louvre Abu Dhabi, who actually selected artwork that made it to their wrapper.
I think that their wrappers are some of the most beautiful wrappers I've ever seen. I think they tell so many stories of the region, of the history and the trade routes. We have it up on our Instagram so you can see for yourself.
Yeah, at one point, I actually had to almost apologize because I was geeking out so much over the packaging. So when I was there, Kathy took me around their space in Al Quoz, where they moved to 3 years ago. They make all their chocolate in-house right at the factory, so you'll hear the machines humming in the background as we talked. And right outside, they have a cafe space where you can sit down, grab some coffee or hot chocolate, which was amazing, by the way, and of course, browse all of the single origin chocolate.
So these are all made with cocoa beans that are grown along the historical spice route. So they're countries that have a trading history or connection with the Arab traders.
Yep.
And so the Arab traders sort of cover the Gulf. A lot of Oman or Omani dhows have been found
Yep.
all over the world.
Yep.
But the coastal Khaliji Arabs from here, but in also sort of northeast Africa there. So there was a line of trade that went from here down the coast of Africa, Tanzania, Zanzibar, Madagascar, and then over to the east, Sri Lanka, India, all the way through to the sort of southern tip of Japan. And it wasn't for cocoa, it was for spices, tobacco, sugar, different things. There is a weird trading history between Europe and Cuba, so we played on that.
Oh, yeah, I did notice that one.
Yeah, but one of the reasons we have the Cuba is more to kind of as a point of difference, because there is not much cocoa grown in the East. It's not the traditional cocoa growing countries, or better, more like technical way to put it would be that the genetics of cocoa that people are generally used to eating is largely what is now grown in West Africa.
Okay.
And they are the biggest cocoa producing countries in the world, and they've developed the genetics for their cocoa beans that have a really lovely chocolate flavor. And in fact, the flavor note is chocolate. We call it flat, like it doesn't have any interesting profile or history. And you find some similar high chocolatiness in beans being grown in the Americas.
Okay.
And we don't get that so much in the East. But Cuba has a nice trading history. So do some other places. Ecuador also has a bit of a trading history and spice history, but not so much with the Arab community, the Arab historically. So we wanted to have that here to show what a high chocolate flavor note cocoa tastes like. And when you eat it, it's like, oh, it's chocolate, tastes like chocolate. That's delicious. It's one of our top selling bars. And it's an 85% dark chocolate. The beans are huge and full of cocoa butter, and they're really easy. Whereas these countries, largely, it's a very small holder producers. They're not producing a high volume, nowhere near the volumes that you kind of see in Africa or the Americas.
I'm going to ask, what is hopefully not a stupid question, but it might be.
No such thing.
Okay. So you know how when you're getting the chocolate and you say it's 65%, 72% or so on, what determines that percentage? Or is it something that you control, or is it based on the type of cocoa bean you're using? How does that work?
The number refers to the percentage of the overall recipe that is cocoa beans.
Got it.
So it can be cocoa butter, it can be cocoa solids, but
Yeah.
it's cocoa beans.
Yeah.
And so if you have like a 50% chocolate, it's 50% cocoa and then 50% other stuff.
Right.
So in the case of the 85% Cuba,
Yeah.
this is 85% cocoa beans
Yeah.
and 15% unrefined cane sugar.
Gotcha.
And the 100% Tanzania, that is
Yeah, I noticed
100% cocoa beans. Then for us, we never really go beyond 3 ingredients. So we have cocoa beans and sugar,
Yeah.
cocoa beans, sugar, and milk. And the milk powder can be whole milk, it can be skim milk, it can be different versions,
so
but
this
it's
says
kind of like
coconut milk powder, for example.
so this one is a vegan milk option.
Oh, nice.
But it kind of sits there at 3 ingredients. We're not adding emulsifiers or vanilla or any of the kind of other things that you would
You can have
expect to
this.
find.
We are now talking to our podcast producer.
The vegan? All yours. And we get that question a lot, like, what do you have here that's vegan? And the answer is like nearly everything. Like a lot of the products that say dark chocolate, if it says dark chocolate, it's not milk chocolate.
Yep,
So
yep,
it's
yep.
dark because it's not milk.
Yeah.
All of our dates are always vegan. We only use dates grown in the UAE, and they're always coated in vegan chocolate, which is just 2 ingredient dark
Yeah,
chocolate.
yeah,
And most of the spice recipes are dark chocolate.
So
So
for
it's kind of like
these-
vegan by accident. We don't put it on the bars.
Yeah,
It just it's
because you're not adding extra unnecessary
it's
ingredients.
not a health product. This is just chocolate.
Yeah. So for something like this, where it says cocoa beans, unrefined cane sugar, and cocoa butter, is cocoa butter added separately? Is that
Yes,
or is that
it's
just
added separately
Yeah.
depending on the fat content of the bean, but
Okay.
it's coming from the bean.
Yeah. Okay. It's like science but fun
But tasty.
and tasty.
We had a bit of a schedule change and I couldn't make that visit with you. And it's already starting to sound like I really missed out on something and I'm getting really jealous.
Well, sorry about that, Tiff. But I'm not gonna lie, it was all really, really fun. The chocolate tasting was also so interesting. For example, we tasted a 72% dark chocolate from Madagascar and another 72%, but from Tanzania. And they are produced in the same way, or rather the same recipe, and from regions that are geographically so close to each other, and yet the chocolate tasted so different.
Absolutely. The environment where things are grown and the source really matters, as we've learned from so many of our guests, whether it's tomatoes, cheese, or chocolate.
We like to say, you see it a lot, that we're not chocolatiers or chocolatiers. We're chocolate makers.
Yeah.
And we specialize in producing the chocolate, working with the cocoa beans, finding great cocoa beans, and then producing different chocolates with those cocoa beans. And that's where we specialize. And then we have fun. So we get to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can see that. And so from the moment you start, the process there with that machine to actually getting them wrapped and ready to go, how long would it take on average?
I always say about 6 weeks.
Okay.
We can do it quicker, but to get the best flavor out of the chocolate, we want to have a really good resting period
Yeah.
between making it and using it. And
Yeah.
that's usually about 4 weeks, 5 weeks. But depending on the recipe, like if you're doing a caramel truffle or a praline or something like that, it might not need so much resting because it's going to get mixed in with other things anyway. So it depends a little bit on the recipe, but yeah. But in between from there to here, we produce 270 different recipes covering like every possible application of chocolate. So there is the drinking chocolates,
Yeah.
truffles, chocolate bars. We do some white label projects as well, and then produce other fun things like chocolate chips for cookies and baker's chocolate for pastry chefs. And we have fun.
That sounds good. Do you sell like things like the chocolate chips for cookies, for example, or the baker's chocolate in here? Or is it like
We do.
for...
We don't have any available at the moment, though, but
Okay.
we do generally.
Yeah.
Sometimes, usually, yes. So at the moment, we have our new Christmas stuff has just come out, and that's a completely new product line. So I'm always excited, but I wanted to do a kind of collection that was all about the secret spice garden. And this storyline sort of follows the imaginary tale of a spice trader, an Arab spice trader who moves to Spain once he's retired and builds an sort of high-walled secret garden in the Alhambra.
Yeah.
And in the Alhambra in Spain, it has a very strong and interesting Muslim and Arab history.
Yeah.
And so the tiles and the creativity is there, but together with these very different ingredients to what we find in Arab food generally. So, oranges and there is some... So the whole story is this guy then retires, and with all of the seeds and plants he's collected on his travels, he builds a garden.
Yeah.
And the Secret Spice Garden is a collection that we launched a few years ago, and it was mostly chocolate-coated nuts and chocolate-coated oranges and citrus. But for Christmas this year in the winter season, we sort of expanded that to create these things called tiles.
Yep.
And the tiles are inspired by the different colored tiles that you find, but obviously everything here contains no coloring and no flavoring. So you manage somehow, without adding any of that, to still get lots of sparkle and color, and the fruit brings a lot of stuff in, and pistachios bring in a lot of green, and you get... It's just fun.
Fun to experiment, for sure.
Yeah. So we have as well a special edition drinking chocolate for Christmas this year, which is a cinnamon and orange.
Yeah.
And then our friends down the road, who are a bakery and tea house and coffee shop called Pecco, they make really, really amazing gingerbread men. So we get their gingerbread men and coated in dark chocolate.
Brilliant.
And that's really fun. They're really tasty. It's like that much chocolate on the outside. So our Emirati collection is our best-selling of all of the recipe sets that we have here. And that's based on recipes that are really inspired by the very traditional recipes of the UAE that you don't really find too much outside of the UAE. Some of them came from Oman, but they really have a strong part of cultural identity of the UAE. So halwa, legemat, ragag, khabisa, asida. And then we've sort of adjusted the mixes of recipes in these like gift boxes so that we can add an element that kind of connects to the place as well. So on our original wrappers, it's artwork, and then what we've done is created these wrappers and packaging that sort of highlights more that it's made in the UAE, has pictures of different parts of the UAE.
I also noticed, you had that little Emirati cookbook there.
So we started doing the Emirati cookbook in 2021. This is the third edition. And it was created for the 50th anniversary of the UAE. And what I wanted to do was sort of summarize the really traditional recipes, but provide an alternative option by a modern day chef. So we asked a group of Emirati chefs to get a recipe from their grandmothers and grandfathers that was made like a 1971 version.
Okay.
And then to recreate it
in their own
for
way.
2021 in their own way. So we have a legamat with a traditional recipe, and then a choux pastry version called the shugamat. For this year's edition, it's a recipe from an Abu Dhabi-based chef, Mohammed Al Mubarak, and he's done dhabiha, which is a very traditional roasted meat that's served with broth and laban over spiced rice.
Yeah.
And then he's done a taco version.
Right. So
it's
you have both options.
And then the biha tacos.
It's just a nice way, I guess, of acknowledging where we are and the flavors that come with it.
And I thought we'd just do like one batch of these, but they've been so popular. I think it's like a nice thing that people want to take away with them.
So when did you first launch the Emirati collection?
2018.
Okay. And you've added on to the recipes that you've...
Well, we started with our single origin recipes, and they reflect the places that the cocoa beans are grown, and they're all places where there's a traditional trading relationship with the UAE. India, Indonesia, Vietnam, places that the spice traders from here traveled to historically. So we started with those recipes, then we added this first range of spice recipes, and those recipes, again, is like dark single origin chocolate, but with rose, with dates, with coffee and cardamom. And then we were like, oh, we need a milk chocolate. So then the Winter in Morocco collection arrived, and that has these recipes that's a little bit more North African trade that happened overland for the markets on Marrakesh. And we thought that would be a really short-term collection, but it became very popular, and so we kept it.
Here we are.
Here we are. It's still here. It's still here. And then it was the monsoon collection, which is all about Indian spices and ingredients that are grown during the monsoon season. And then the Emirati collection. And then we were like, we've got too many chocolate bars.
Are
It's
there
time to
ever
slow
too
down.
many? Are there? Are there though?
A little bit. It's possible. One can be too creative.
With the different ideas you've had, whether it's for this, whether it's for the monsoon collection or the spice collection, where does that inspiration come from? From you? Like,
Well, no, not just from me. The owners of Mirzam Emirati, and I think like the three of us, we all grew up here. This
Yeah.
is our culture, and we're really
Yeah.
proud
Yeah.
of these elements of the UAE that I think as we were growing up, everybody looked to the outside. We looked, you were excited when McDonald's came to the UAE. You were excited when these international brands kind of arrived here. And there wasn't much excitement or pride about what could be manufactured locally. And that was one of the first goals of Mirzam, was for us to make something that was benchmarked against the international caliber of premium chocolate makers and really showed what can be done here. And that was always like where we started from. We didn't want to use cheap ingredients or try to compete with the bulk chocolate milky sort of recipes that were available already. We wanted something that really made us proud to be able to say that this was made in the UAE. And I think that kind of becomes the inspiration for everything else.
Yeah.
Like there are so many stories here. There's just so much history, and there's really funny like little stories that we can pull from, and family recipes and stuff that was iconic to us growing up, like asida, which you didn't really find out anywhere in like even the little local restaurants and pop-ups. It was just like no one thought it was cool. So we wanted asida to really become, I don't know, it's such a fun recipe. So we've had a lot of fun trying to highlight that and make it better known.
oh, you did it as a clad caca. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I love making that cake. Like it's so easy.
Oh, great.
I love that. That's one of my things.
So that recipe,
Ah.
so there is a traditional asida in here, and then the asida version that Hamda did. So Hamda has a cafe called Milk Bar that's
Yeah.
down the other end of Al Wasl Road.
Yeah.
And just has beautiful coffee, and the space is so stunning. And she did both of these recipes.
Oh, this is cool because I normally do make the traditional
cool.
one at home. It's easy to make. But this is amazing. I love that. I love that.
That's so cool. I
Yeah.
have to tell Hamda. That's so cool.
This is all very cool. And I think like what's always struck me, by the way, about every time I've seen, a bar or drinking chocolate or whatever, is the artwork. And I knew I needed to ask you about that because it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm just curious about why has all of this been so important for you guys as well? Because it is quite striking.
Yeah.
But also there's so much kind of pointers to where it comes from and what it means.
And there's just like way too many layers of storytelling going on. But I think one of the things we wanted to communicate with the packaging was that the product is handmade. So we wanted the artwork to be painted or illustrated or, created by hand, not a graphic design project. And we didn't really, there's something that's really hygienic is probably, sanitized is probably the right way to say it, but about brands where every product looks the same. And there is a lot of science to that and a lot of marketing theory that goes into making things look very consistent and highlighting the logo, but it was never something that we wanted to do. Like if you've come here to the factory, you're at Mirzam. There is no need to put it on everything everywhere.
Right, yeah.
And if the logo gets lost somewhere in the packaging and it's too busy, I don't really care.
Yeah.
That isn't part of this brand. It's not something we are striving for. We have a bigger message about quality and the quality of the product. And if somebody likes the product, they will come back and buy it again. And I don't want that to be because of the packaging.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of reasons why it sort of started with this very handmade feel. And we really wanted to, sit with the beauty of the Orient and these romantic historical stories of the adventures that the sailors had. There is this wonderful part of history, and it's not really connected to borders. It was before a lot of that. It was before you had passports and countries and things like that. So that we didn't want to really connect too much to this modern story.
Yeah.
But, there is so much of that history that is very intangible, and we really wanted to play with that. And I think the artwork has given us a good outlet to
So
have
all
fun.
of these are hand drawn
So
with your
there is
designer?
across all of the packaging, we've worked now with I think 28 different artists.
Oh, amazing.
Some are UAE nationals, some are from outside of the UAE, some of them have no connection, but they have a connection to the ingredients or the place where. But this collection, the Emirati collection, is an amazing young man named Saeed Al Madani. And he studied printmaking in London, and he was doing this, I think, right after he graduated.
Right.
So there was a lot of technique to how he created the prints.
It's beautiful. Very, very striking.
There's just like so many stories. This rapper is an Emirati artist named Mirzam Thani, and it was a project we did for Valentine's Day in 2017 with the World Wildlife Fund. So the whole idea was like giving back to the world and giving love to the world rather than bad boyfriends. And then there is an Emirati artist in there who's done our 2 milk chocolate single origin cocos.
Okay.
Then an Egyptian Dutch artist who's done the 2 Tanzanias. And then a German artist who did the Cuba wrapper.
All
But
over
we
the world.
wanted all of them to have a map and a Tao element. So the map sort of connects to the origin, and the Tao tells that story of the traders.
Yep.
But they're all otherwise very different. And you look at them and they feel different.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Packaging, I think, is quite... I think it's a geeky thing to be interested in packaging.
It's very interesting learning more about it and learning about the dynamics of what happens in like a supermarket environment, how marketing agencies approach packaging to compete in a highly competitive place. It's such a different thought process to being in an environment where you're not trying to compete with anybody else because it's a factory and this is the factory outlet.
Yeah, but it still works. I mean, people would see something like this and think, oh, that's pretty. I mean, I do that with books sometimes. I'm like, that's a pretty cover. You just hope the book will be good. In this case, the chocolate is good, so that's great.
I've done that. I have some books and I've been like, this is terrible. Why did I remember why I bought that.
I fell for the cover.
But we're always being so small, it's really easy for us to do experiments.
Yeah.
So we can try a cover and a recipe and have fun with the packaging. And if it doesn't work, oh well.
Has that happened though?
Yeah, all the time, all the time, constantly. Like we make a recipe, we try to see, does it sell? Do customers like it? What's the feedback like? Do our international customers like it? And then what's the feedback from the retailers? And then if it doesn't work, well, oh well, like it's not such a massive factory that when you invest in a new product, you need to have years of R&D and focus groups and the tons and tons of wastage when it doesn't work out. Like we can test and fail fast when we need to, and we want to. I get to have so much fun doing that.
Do you have a favorite one among all your babies?
I don't play favorites with my children.
When we come back, Kathy tells me how her childhood gave her all the different skills she uses at the chocolate factory. And of course, it's time for some chocolate tasting. That's right after this short break. Welcome back. You're listening to Nourish by Spinneys and our chocolate-filled conversation with Kathy Johnston from Mirzam. So when people are kind of like you say, shopping somewhere for chocolate and trying to buy it, if they aren't sure what it means to be, say, single origin, or what it means if it doesn't say on the bar at all, what do they need to bear in mind, or what do they have to think about?
I will always advise people when you're trying to buy chocolate, if you want to buy good chocolate, try to look for bars that tell you where the cocoa beans were grown. It's a really easy thing to do, and in most chocolate you will really be able to tell, on a bar that highlights where the ingredients came from. They're proud of it. Any food product in general that's proud of the ingredients or proud of how it's made, and there will be usually a price that reflects the quality of those ingredients. They will tell you. They're not going to keep it a secret if the ingredients are good. So if you find a chocolate bar and it's just like made with cocoa, maybe don't buy that one.
Okay.
So this is a 72% dark chocolate made with cocoa beans grown in Tanzania. The guys who grow these cocoa beans, it's actually more of a business structure. So they support a lot of small farms around them. And they centrally ferment the cocoa beans to make sure there is really good consistency. They offer the farmers really good payment terms. And they have a lot of organic certified farms as well that they're working with. So they process all of these beans and then help everybody by having really professional logistics and distribution services. So Coco Camellia, one of the best known premium quality cocoa producers in the world.
Okay. I got like a hint of like, I don't know, cherries or something like richer coating my tongue. It was just comforting. What do you taste when you eat that?
The Tanzania for me, I get a nice sparkle of red berries, but like lighter red berries. Definitely cherries, but not German cherries, maybe Iranian cherries. It's a really chocolatey bar as well. There's a lot of chocolate in there. So it's interesting. It's always interesting to try a chocolate that comes from a nearby place.
Okay.
You know, this is not a completely different.
Yeah.
You know, Madagascar's, as the bird flies, probably half an hour away from Tanzania. Maybe it's more than half an hour, but close.
Do you get to go visit all the places that you source from?
No, not all of the places. It's a lot of these farms are very, very hard to get to.
Okay,
So
yeah.
they're not in urban environments, obviously, but you can fly into a city and then it's often a second small flight or a 12-hour drive or something like that. So one makes it's quite hard to get to. But then we work with people who do spend a lot of time on these farms and going to these places. So that gives us this sort of like trust that we know that people are doing the right things.
This is completely different.
Completely different.
It's completely different.
Very different. It's different in a couple of ways as well. So both of these recipes are 72%. We say that we add cocoa butter, but often we don't because there is plenty in there. But you'll notice a very big texture difference between the two as well. One is softer, one is harder. It's so much brighter in the flavor.
Yeah, this one is, I don't know if it is, but it almost feels sweeter, but I know it's
exactly
not.
the same recipe.
Yeah, I know it's not, but it feels that way. Like that one makes me think of, okay, when I ate the first one, I almost thought about being in like a darker room, maybe with like a lot of wood accents and just like, you know, a fireplace, for example. That one, I was just like, I'm in a meadow somewhere, chilling with nature. A completely different feeling when I tasted them both. And
you can also like kind of see side by side.
Yeah.
There's a color difference as well. Like the beans from Tanzania, this is a sort of almost looks like a milkier chocolate.
I see what, yeah, that looks darker almost, yeah. It's fascinating.
It really is fascinating. And I think this, single origin and specialty coffee has such a big community here.
Yeah.
And I think we've found that the coffee community has been a really, really great place for us to be involved in. We make a lot of specialty drinking chocolates just because some of that language and understanding is there. That's the same about what you would expect from a specialty product. And how the pricing varies. Like each one of the single origin bars is a different price, which is reflective of the fact that the ingredients are so different.
And where did the, I guess the reasoning behind, how you've designed the actual bars in themselves come about?
So the bars are all molded in this mold that has waves. And the waves is part of this story about the dhows sailing the world, following the stars for navigation. Mirzam is the name of one of the stars. So this whole theme of seafaring and marine trade, the maritime spice route, rather than the overland Silk Road or overland trade, is all of the reason why you'll find waves in a lot of secret places at Mirzam. So this is a 65%. This is made with cocoa beans grown in India. We've won several awards for this bar. And the cocoa farmers have also won awards for their cocoa beans in very, very prestigious awards of Cocoa of Excellence. And there's a lot of amazing high-profile chocolate makers that also use these cocoa beans from India. They're exceptional. It's one of my favorite origins of what we make here. It has a real punch of honey as well, which I think...
I was going to say there, I feel like, honey, probably not there, but I was thinking about cinnamon for some reason, but the honey was
They
What
do
hit me
grow
first?
different spices on this farm, and I had always tasted a bit of nutmeg. The farmers there have experimented a lot with the fermentation protocols over the years, so the fermentation has a really big impact here, and it can taste more chocolatey to some people. I think it's excellent. So this is 65% dark chocolate made with cocoa beans grown in Vietnam. We have always found that this is our most complex of the single origins. There's a lot of different berries and sparkliness going on. It's a really flavorful chocolate.
There's like an aftertaste that is so different from when you're actually biting into the chocolate. Like the others felt more consistent in terms of I tasted honey, I still tasted honey when I was done. But this one,
It's like Fruity Pebbles. It's really like bright and fun. What we encourage people to do when you're tasting chocolate and tasting is to remember that your tongue has different flavor zones on it.
Yeah.
So to melt the chocolate and however you want to do it in your mouth, crunch it, whatever, and then move it around the whole tongue.
Yeah.
Like try to coat your whole tongue in
Okay.
chocolate. So you get a sense. The reason we start with the dark recipes is because the sugar area of your tongue can become blinded by having too much
Right.
sweetness.
Okay.
And then you can't taste a lot of the flavor because there's so much sugar going on.
Right.
Then we have our spiced recipes. So the spiced recipes can be anything that isn't plain chocolate, basically.
Yeah.
So there you go. And I've picked 2 spiced recipes for you to try, but we have obviously a lot more. So if there's something else that you want to try. This one is our dates and fennel bar.
So
And
within that, it would be the process that you use to make these plus the spices that you add for it.
So we
Okay.
make the chocolate and then
Yeah.
we would mix in something else. This bar is a little bit different though. And I'm going to let you break a piece off so you get an idea of the recipe. So
Oh, yeah.
this has a really delicate layer inside of locally grown dates together with fennel.
The fennel hit me immediately with the smell.
And this is actually an old family recipe. And again, like naturally vegan because you don't need to add. And it tastes so sweet. Like the dates without adding any other sugar to it, taste in themselves like so delicious and sweet. It's very,
How do you decide like what percentage of chocolate you're gonna use for your different recipes? Is that just experimentation or
it's just kind of what we feel like. So we make a lot of different chocolates. 100%,
Yeah.
85, 72, 65, 62, 52, 50, 48, 45, 36. So we make a lot of different base chocolates. And then with the 36 is a white chocolate, we have a caramelized version and a plain white chocolate version. With the 48% is a milk chocolate, 50% is the vegan milk chocolate, 52% is a dark milk chocolate. We make all sorts of recipes. These are our dark chocolate coated oranges.
Okay.
We started making these as part of the Secret Spice Garden collection, and we've recently started retailing them in the US as well, and they're a super popular recipe that we make. And because what we do is cook the whole orange. So the orange keeps all of the juice and all of the flavor that you get. You're not just taking the peel and dehydrating it, and then you need to add chemical flavoring to bring the sort of orange back to life. This is the whole fruit. And then like a juice and liquids and flavor from the fruit stays together with the pulp and gives it like a super great orange flavor.
I can tell how juicy it still is.
Oh my God, this is really tasty. You get a really good one.
Yeah, it's good. I love that you're surprised when something in your own.
You get kind of like numb to chocolate. No, I eat so much. I love chocolate. I'm never sick of chocolate. I can always eat chocolate. But I often don't because I'm at work and I eat chocolate all day as part of my job. So I don't need to go and eat chocolate. If I'm craving chocolate, I'm never craving chocolate because I'm always eating chocolate.
I mean, that's
But
such
every
a
now and
great,
again, I like eat something and I'm like, oh my God, I love chocolate.
such a great job description. It's my job to eat chocolate. Yeah, all right. How did you get the job eating chocolate? Like, what did you ever think when you were growing up in Dubai?
I dreamed. I didn't think. I definitely dreamed. I have always been obsessed with chocolate. My
Okay.
mom used to say that she'd hide it and she thought I could smell it out. Like, I've just always loved chocolate. I've always loved chemistry. I've always loved engineering. It was all these things I didn't think that I would be able to do for work though. Like you don't, it's like, wanting to be a ballerina or something. You don't think that you can do it. It's not something you would do.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry.
But life is interesting. And I was very, very lucky to meet the owners of Mirzam before Mirzam had come to life. It hadn't opened yet, it wasn't operational. And we were both really excited by chocolate. And I was trying to start my own chocolate factory somewhere else. And then we just ended up working together and learning about the process and learning together. And they're fantastically, just incredible palettes.
Yeah.
Super interested in good quality. And we were all on the same page in trying to produce things that reflect the values of the UAE and things that are really, really good quality. I asked one of them recently, actually, like, what's your favorite thing about Mirzam? And he said, it's being able to know what we're putting in the food we eat.
Yeah.
Which I think is really like special to me, that we're all aligned on that message of health and quality.
Yeah. What's your favorite part about working in a chocolate factory? Apart from eating all the chocolate.
I mean, for me, it's probably something that it's really, really personal, that somehow I can, in this role, combine all of the things I like doing. I like project management. I like leading people. I like creativity and fine arts and design, and I like science and food science and ingredient science and understanding machines and machine engineering. And I, grew up with a lot of engineers in my family, and so I didn't think, I always roll my eyes when my dad would talk to me about how engines work and machines work, and now I get to apply a lot of that. My mom was a photographer, and I had to assist her at all the weddings, and I, when I first finished high school, I had to work in a magazine, and I did some work, and you had to do your own design and layout, so I had to learn how to use InDesign and Photoshop. And in my school, I had to do cooking classes because I wasn't allowed to do the religious studies. So all of these things kind of like come together every day for me, and I wake up and I'm excited. It's not even excited. I'm just like living, and it's so everything I get to do here is fun.
Yeah.
It's fun for me. I like it when the machines break. I like finding solutions. I like working towards creating new recipes and thinking about how the ingredients will sit together chemically and what their shelf life could be. So all of these things come together for me in making this. What does Barbie say? It's the best day, every day.
I didn't think we would be referencing Barbie today, but here we are.
Dude, we should always be referencing Barbie.
I have a very random question to ask, but I have people who have very differing views on this. Do you put your chocolate in the fridge?
No one should ever put their chocolate in the fridge. Look, I think there is a circumstance where I would put chocolate in the fridge, and that's when I have bought truffles or like temperature sensitive, short shelf life chocolate products.
Yeah.
The humidity of Dubai would adversely affect their shelf life.
Yeah.
And because I want to eat them very slowly over as long a period as possible and really like enjoy them. It doesn't need to expire either. Like dark chocolate doesn't have any ingredients that will degrade over time.
Okay, yeah.
Sugar doesn't have a shelf life, and cocoa beans don't have a shelf life. They're fine.
Yeah.
As long as they're not being exposed to too much humidity or pests or temperature changes, they're fine for years and years and years and years.
Good to know.
Milk, if it has milk, then 18 months.
Like these bars, for example.
These bars, fridges are very high humidity environments, and the humidity, the moisture in the air attaches to the sugar crystals and it blooms the chocolate. So the sugar comes out, or humidity starts to play with the temperature of the chocolate. And it's not dangerous, and it's still fine to eat, but it does affect the texture of the chocolate, and it becomes more and more crumbly over time, and it doesn't melt nicely in the mouth. It really like forms these sort of like fatty round globules.
Right, yeah.
So don't.
I didn't say I did. I'm just saying I've met people with differing views.
My friend.
I'm asking for
My
a friend. I have a question. No, we have a question that we ask all our guests on the show, which I regularly forget to ask. What is it that nourishes your soul?
You really should have emailed me that one first. So I can think about something
Profound?
something profound and meaningful. I think food, making food, and food makers. Like the community of people who make food are just amazing, interesting people. And I like to do comparative food evaluations with my food friends. So we would like get a lot of croissants or a lot of panettone or a lot of gianduja and then try them side by side and try to understand why do they taste different and how were they made. And I think that always I find very inspiring and exciting. But the food, like food people are just the best. They're just the best.
We like them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you surprised or worried at all about, I guess, the reception of the chocolates in like the local market?
Yeah, very much. Like we anticipated that we would be the customers for our chocolate here, and that most of the
just you
chocolate would
yourself?
be sold
Okay.
in the US.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
in the US, there is a very strong existing craft chocolate community.
Yeah.
There's a lot of appreciation for understanding of the origins from customer side, as well as a lot of small manufacturers, so the access to ingredients is easier. So we assumed we'd be making the chocolate here and kind of telling the stories of the Orient,
Okay.
but that people here might not be so interested because there was such a preference for milk chocolate and not in a tablet format. And what we found was people did want dark chocolate. There just wasn't really available.
Yeah.
So there is dark chocolate available, but it was always like bland and overly flat and waxy, and people wanted something that was better. So we immediately like sold out, and we continued to sell out for a few years until we figured out how to make enough chocolate that we could. Yeah.
So do you sell a lot overseas now as well? Or
Yeah.
So is that mostly the US? Or?
Mostly in the US, also in Switzerland, and from time to time other parts of Europe, but not as consistently. But in the US, most of our export goes there.
Okay. So do you retail through distributors or?
Yeah,
Okay.
we have an exclusive distributor in the US, and they specialize in craft chocolate and understanding of how the stuff is made. They're very dedicated to supporting farmers as well.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. Have there been days where you just frustrated or felt that this was too much of a challenge?
There's definitely been some of those days. It's nearly 8 years for me working on Mirzam, you know, preparing it for launch. Building the first factory and the second factory were both a massive learning curve in construction that I didn't know I would ever need to, but now I'm still don't want to build new factories, but
Fair enough.
I'm better at it now. But yeah, some of the construction days were very, very stressful.
Yeah, can imagine. But I mean, the space looks amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's. I'm glad we came here today to It's so nice. I'm gonna be back. Sit there in a corner.
Bring Tiffany.
Yeah.
And just like that, we've come to the end of 2023. It's quite nice to end with chocolate, I must say.
Yes, and I believe we're also gonna have some chocolate news from Spinneys early in the new year.
Indeed. So we're working on an exciting collab for our Spinneys Food chocolate range with Mirzam.
Amazing.
There are 4 delicious bars launching, so I will keep you posted.
Well, that's definitely something to look forward to. But for now, here's wishing everyone a happy and safe holiday season.
And a happy new year. We'll be back with a new episode on the 9th of January, where Devina sits down with Chef Rahul from Avatara.
See you then. Is it breaking the third wall if we talk to you? Or whatever it's called.
There's a wall.
You know, like Deadpool.
I hated that movie. That's such a sad movie. It's a horrible.